Hi, I'm Bart Hansen. I'm the owner of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you like the channel, please subscribe and hit that like button. And if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
It's at 1-3. It's a match the stack game.
Okay.
I normally play in the 1-2, but there's a seat open. Look good. Trying to take a shot.
Okay.
So let's see. I've been at the table for about an hour. I'm the effective stack at 800.
Okay, so a little bit deep here, right? 800 effective.
Yep. And getting into the hand, we got 2 limps.
Okay.
We got the cutoff raises to 10. They're mid 40s. This is like their standard size. Like no limps first in to 10. 5 limps raising to 10.
That's really, really odd. Because I always say, like,
I've seen him. Yeah.
I always say if you want to try to hop on, if you want to experiment with 3-betting pre-flop, this is, maybe it's a little bit different in Texas, but I guess I'll see. This is the time to do it, because if you get somebody that makes a standard open raise size when multiple people have limped in front of them, like if their standard opens to 10 and now all of a sudden you see like 3 or 4 people limp in and a guy on the button makes it 10, that's almost never a raise, unless, never a really strong hand, unless like they're trying to induce something. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a pot sweetener raise is what my experience has been. But
absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Out of all the times I've seen the sizing, like bet sizing strength tells are still a thing.
Yeah.
And I've never seen someone open really small and then come back over the top when I try to attack those situations. So, I mean, I think this guy was just there having a good time on the weekend. Made it 10.
Okay, so 2 limps cut off to 10.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cut off to 10. Small blind calls. He is who I won my like 1 pot off. I isolated him. He had king 9 offsuit called down on a king high dry, whatever. So he's in there. He's pretty sticky after that hand, right? I looked down in the big blind with ace of clubs, king of hearts.
Okay.
And 3-bet to 50. Limps fold, cutoff calls, small blind calls.
So you 3-bet to 50. So 10 in a call from the small blind over 2 limps. You 3-bet to 50, which, again, it's a little bit on the smaller side, but you're dealing with limps up front. So it's like 10 in a call. If you were to do 4x plus the call, it would be 50. So I can get on board. So you make it 50, and the limpers fold and the cutoff on the small blind call. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
All right. So pot's like 155 or something like that. We'll call it 155. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So it gets the flop out there. It is 8 of clubs, 6 of clubs, 4 of hearts.
8 of clubs, 6 of clubs, 4 of hearts. Okay. You have ace of clubs, king of hearts as a 3-bet from the big blind, and the pot is 155. Okay.
Yes. So my first question here is constructing a seed betting range, multi-way.
Yeah, 3-bet pot.
So like heads up, I probably go bet here, right? Like I got my 2 overs, range advantage, etc. With being stuck in the middle, or say just completely out of position, how do I construct a continuation betting range here?
I mean, I understand what you're saying. You have the ace of clubs, right? So first of all, you can't expect players to be playing the right types of ranges here, right? Like, at a 1-3 game. I mean, more often than not, this is a value-oriented game. Even with the ace of clubs, I'm not going to usually c-bet here into 2 people in a 3-bet pot on this sort of middling type of board. And my line of thinking here is that they're either not going to fold, they have the best hand here with the pair, or they've missed. And if they've missed, like in the form of Broadway cards, you have them beat anyways. So I could sort of legitimately see check calling here to reasonable sizing. Now, you can't check overcall. So let's say the small blind checked and you checked and the cutoff bet like 75 and the small blind called. Well, now you're just done with it, right? But if the small blind checked, you checked, and like the cutoff bet like 50 and the small blind folded, I think you could certainly continue with the ace of clubs, right? Like two overs with the ace of clubs. But here I would not see bet. I mean, I
Okay.
probably would not see bet. Did you check?
Yeah, I did. So that if I heard that right, we're check call, like in a heads up situation, but to small sizing. Like if someone bet three quarters pot, we're kind of done with it.
If the cutoff bet like 100 and the small blind
Yeah.
folded,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it starts to get dicey. Usually people aren't going to be like just you know blindly bluffing there for the most part in a three bet pot, especially into another player too. That sort of this fishy guy that cold called in the small blind. But if it's something smaller than that, like if the cutoff bet 75 and you were getting 3-1 and the small blind folded, I think it's probably pretty close. It's probably pretty close to a check call with the ace of clubs. You're going to see a lot of like two card sort of turn, like you're going to see like a lot of checkbacks on a lot of turns too. But I just want to make sure that you cannot overcall. You can, if it goes bet call, no matter what the sizing is, you don't want to do that, and that's where a lot of people get into trouble. But so you check, and then the cutoff also checks.
Yeah. So we check through on the flop.
Okay.
The turn comes out the nine of clubs.
Okay. So again, it's two limps, cut off to 10, small blind calls. Hero in the big blind has ace of clubs, king of hearts, three bets to 50. Limpers fold, cutoff calls, small blind calls. Pot's 155. Flop is eight of clubs, six of clubs, four of hearts. Check, check, check. Turn is the nine of clubs, which gives you the nut flush draw now, right? With the ace
Yep.
of clubs. Okay.
Okay. So here the small blind checks again,
Yeah.
and this is I'm not very proud of this, but I bet 85. And looking back on this in my notes, I was just like, "What? Why am I like? What is this bet?"
Uh huh.
This is just
Yeah,
like a
and
WTF
when you
play.
emailed when
So
you sent me this hand, I kind of was thinking the same thing. So again, it's a situation where you probably either just have the best hand here with ace king, and you have the nut draw here too, which means like God forbid if a fourth club came in, you actually could extract some value. You either have the best hand here, or you're not going to get fold equity if you play a one street game. So the only sort of way that I would see betting here on the turn is if you were going to go bet across a blank, but I don't know if you're going to get a whole lot of credit. I feel like these guys are going to call you down because you didn't bet the flop, and everyone's going to bet the flop with here with a flush draw, right? On the flop
yeah,
at this
or an
level.
overpair.
Yeah,
It's
so
like
to go bet, like if you bet and get called and then the river's a deuce and you bet again, I just don't see the folds that are going to come through here. So, it's like one of these spots where and then the other thing too is I guess you could bet and get called by like a lower club. So that would be the only reason to bet, but I think
mhm.
the sizing is way too much. I mean, generally, I'm probably just going to check here. I'm not a huge fan of this in between sizing. I would probably check ace king with the ace of clubs here. But okay, so you bet 85.
Yeah, we get a call on the cutoff, and
Okay.
the small blind folds.
So when the cutoff calls and didn't bet off on the flop, usually it's going to be somewhat indicative that he's going to have, you know, a nine or, well, he opened pre and then called a three bet. So he could possibly have like a club, you know what I mean, in his hand. It's kind of interesting because it's a three
Hmm.
bet pot, right? Because you would think that he would bet something off like a pair uh, on the flop, but it is three ways, so I mean anything's possible. So the pot looks like it's about 325 now. Cutoff call, small blind folds, right?
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, I was like thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, he just called here. Do I get so lucky that he has broadways with one club,
Right.
or did he just hit the nine? I mean, yeah, like you said, anything's possible. So river comes out, ace of diamonds.
Oh, okay. So you run into top pair.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
And now your question is, what am I going to do? So this is kind of
Well,
interesting. This is
yeah.
interesting because we just talked through the ranges, right? Like I'm all for making super thin
Hmm.
value bets, right? Like I mean value, value, value. But there are some times where you sort of have to get a little bit on the more sophisticated side. So in general, I just put something out. I probably put this out on social media like one times a year, one time, even sometimes more than one time a year. At the low stakes, in general, you want to avoid check calling the river because the reasons to check call the river are to induce a bluff and to get somebody to value own themselves with a hand that they would otherwise fold and that they bet. And the second part's really, really rare because it's a special circumstance that usually doesn't happen at 1-3. The guy would have to fold to a bet, whereas if you check to him, he would bet himself, right? But let's take a look at number one, inducing a bluff here, because we just talked through it. It's a 3-bet pot. So the question becomes, what hand are you going to get to call you with now if most people will put the pre-flop 3-better on like an overpair or ace king at a minimum that this guy checked through on the flop that called the turn. Now, I guess he could have like ace queen of clubs, maybe. He could have like, I guess, ace king of clubs, even though you have ace of clubs, king of hearts. I wonder if possibly checking here would be best because it doesn't seem like he's going to call a bet. And it looks weird. It looks kind of like he might be on a draw here. And the card is so good on the river. But while I'm talking this out loud, on the flip side to that, I say, well, yeah, but like, is the guy really going to bluff here at the end with something? Because when I'm in your perspective, like if I'm in your opponent's perspective and I don't know, say I call the turn bet with like king queen with the king of clubs or something like that. When you check to me on the river, I don't think I have much fold equity here. Like you either have like an ace that you ran into or you have something that you're going to call with. Because if you were bluffing, you'd probably use this ace as a bluff at the end. So your whole line reeks that if you check, you're going to check call. So you sort of have to balance like, well, how often is he going to bluff in this spot, even though the hand looks like it could be a check call to induce a bluff. But if there's no bluffing frequency, then I might as well just come out and bet thin at the end. And the more I think about this, the more I would probably just bet. Like at the lower stakes, I'd probably just bet small, 125. And maybe against trickier opponents, I might check to check call. Are you with me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, I think my hand looks like what it is. It looks like ace king that made a bad bet on the turn because what checks that flop for value? Like
Mm-hmm.
what value hand? So I have that check the flop, and then on the end, if he's hold like if he got to the turn with a small pair, what does he call in the end? I just was wondering, like, this hand looks like kind of like a bluff catcher. Do I just bet big and like go for the home run, or like you're saying, bet
Well, you mean
small
his hand
and
looks like a bluff catcher, you mean? Or your hand?
right? Like what? Like his hand? Like I would like I like eight. Like what does he? Does he have ace nine or ace? Does he not bet ace eight on the like? Does he have something goofy like 10-7, I guess, and didn't raise on the turn?
No, I'm not concerned.
Um,
I'm not really
yeah, I don't
concerned
know.
that you're beat. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to play
Yeah,
the
yeah.
hand on the river, right? So
Okay,
if his hand's a bluff catcher, you wouldn't want to bet huge at 1-3 because guys are
okay,
just looking at their hand, right? So, if he's got a 9 that he ran into or something like that, then, you don't necessarily want to scare him away. I would just tend to
okay.
bet like on the smaller side here. What did you do?
I ended up betting 185. So
I
again,
mean,
just right in the middle.
185 is kind of interesting because it's like, he called the 3-bet, so I just wonder if he has like ace queen with like the queen of clubs or, you know, something like that, possibly ace king with the king of clubs. Obviously, you're going to lose to aces up. I think it's probably a little bit on the larger side. What ended up happening?
Well, Bart, you've been doing this a long time because he did have ace queen with the queen of clubs,
Okay. So there you
and he
go.
called.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and that's why I want to bet at the end, right? But
Yeah.
I just think that maybe you might get a little bit more of a robust range to call if you bet tiny um, at the end. But it's interesting. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out crushlivepoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.